Hello and welcome once again. Today we are going to be making Yakhni Pulao. I will be using a SHAN packet for this, and it is an extremely easy dish to do. I think this is one of the first ones I learned. Alright, we're going to want 2 entire spoonfuls of oil. So 1, 2. Rule applies to every desi dish. Medium-high heat, also pretty standard stuff. Once the oil gets cooking, we will add our onions, and once again, cook to a golden brown. All right, now that I can smell the oil cooking, I'm going to add those onions. All right, I have added those sliced onions to the warmed oil and just cooking it down until it turns golden brown. Okay, our onions are just starting to brown, so I'm going to go ahead and add the ginger and the garlic. It was 5 cloves of garlic and 1 inch worth of ginger that I just very well crushed. Mix it in there and continue to let it cook until everything's that golden brown color. Now that the onions are all golden, you're going to want to go ahead and add your chicken, but first, and this isn't part of a normal recipe, this is just something that I do for my kids to get them to eat this dish. I like to add some frozen mixed vegetables to it because they like having the corn and all the other colors, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I just put about a cup in. Again, this isn't necessary, this is just entirely for my kids' sake. But I just give it a quick stir, and then we're going to go ahead and add the chicken. Now this is this is boned chicken, but skinless legs. The leg pieces have been cut into 3. For these sorts of dishes, you're going to want to use boned chicken because you want the bones to make the dish more flavorful rather than using boneless, if you can. This has been rinsed, so this is just some extra water on it. You're going to want to cook this and fry it until the chicken is mostly cooked but not entire. Alright, while the chicken is cooking, I'm going to show you about the spices. So for the SHAN packet, which I will be using in the dish, it comes as whole spices, so I'm going to grind it, the entire bag first, and then replace it into the box once again before I portion out what I need. However, if you can't find the SHAN packet, and you can find the spices for it, if you take a cheesecloth, to the center of the cheesecloth you'll want to add 10 clove pieces, 4 green cardamom, 2 black cardamom, but smash it so that it's broken open, not crushed completely, but enough that you can see the seeds inside, 1 teaspoon of cumin seeds, 1 bay leaf, 1 stick of cinnamon. I just cut it or broke it into smaller pieces, 1 teaspoon of whole coriander seed, a half teaspoon of black peppercorns, and a half teaspoon of fennel seed. Just put it inside the cheesecloth and then tie it closed, and you'll want to throw the whole bag inside the pot at the same time as I would be adding the spice packet. You want to try not to grind up the fresh spices because it will make it way too spicy. This dish is supposed to be mostly rice and chicken flavored with just a hint of seasoning. The SHAN packet, it avoids that problem, whereas if you're using it fresh and grinding it fresh, it's going to be much more intense. The only other thing you'll need to worry about for if you can't use the SHAN packet is when I go to add salt, you will also want to put 1/4 a teaspoon of ground turmeric powder into the pot. After you've gotten the chicken to cook for about 10 minutes, where it's just starting to turn brown on the outside, but it's still pretty squishy, it's not cooked on the inside, you're going to want to add water. Now for this part, the best way to remember is just however much rice you plan on using, you're going to want to add 1.5 times the amount of water. So as I'm going to be putting 3 cups of rice in this, I want to have 1 1/2 times that amount. So 1, 2, there's 3 cups. Now for the halves, it'll be just another 1 1/2 cup. Four. And 1/2. Stir it to make sure there's nothing stuck on the bottom, and then cover this and let it cook for another 10, maybe 15 minutes, depending on your stove, until the chicken is thoroughly cooked, and then we'll start adding our spices. Alright, once the chicken has cooked enough that you can see it's falling off of the bone almost, that's a good indicator. So if you look here at this leg, the bone is exposed and the meat is otherwise really well cooked. This is the point where we add the SHAN packet, or if you're not using the SHAN packet, that little cheesecloth that you tied up. So I've ground this one up, and I use about 1/2 of the container's worth. You'll also want to take those 2 whole green chilies and just throw them right in. They are not for heat. This dish is not spicy at all in terms of hot. It just adds a chili flavor, we'll call it. So let it cook up. If you're using the whole spice packet, give it a minute before you go to this next step. But you're going to want to add salt until it tastes like seawater. You want it to be so salty that it tastes like seawater. Because once you add the rice are going to absorb everything, and you won't even be able to tell that there was salt in there. So it's usually quite a bit of salt, at least a teaspoon, I would say, for this much. I'm going to stir it and just taste it. Until it tastes really salty, which is where I'm at right now. Now, the last thing you need to do is add and stir in the rice, which again, this was 3 cups of rice that I soaked for 1/2 hour in water, and then I drained it and rinsed the rice until the water was clear, no longer white and starchy. This particular type of rice is basmati rice, and it's what is used for desi food. I don't recommend using another kind of rice like plain white or even the Japanese style rice, because it's a different type of grain and it's just going to turn mushy. This dish should be fluffy with the rice individual grains. So anyway, you pour the rice in and you stir it. And then you're going to want to cover it and cook it for, I would say, 8 minutes. After you've let it cook for around 8 minutes, you'll want to check to see that you don't see any water on top, and take a kernel of the rice and test it. It should be parboiled, so just a tiny bit hard in the center, not crunchy, but not fully soft. And then you'll want to turn off the burner. Take a paddle similar to this if you have one, otherwise any flat spatula and turn everything. Try to get those green chilies down under the rice so it absorbs more. And then just cover it again and take it off the burner completely and let it sit. This is an extremely important step. Let it sit for 10 minutes completely undisturbed. Now that we've had it sitting out of the heat for 10 minutes, we can look at it and see that it is completely done. You'll know that it's finished because all the rice is standing up like this. So this is the completed dish, and it's a complete meal. You don't actually serve it with anything else except for maybe a raita, which is a yogurt that you can drizzle on top with some spices in it. It's like green, or some fresh salad, but it has everything you need for it to be a complete meal.